Hello Internet, my name is the Golden Stalfos, and today we're doing a follow-up video about Cyberpunk. Hooray! So for anyone who doesn't know, uh, I did an initial stream the day the game came out when I bought it on PC because I really wanted to play the game. I'd been looking forward to it for a long time. And then I refunded that game after my hour and a half stream because it was boring as shit. And then I made a video talking about why I thought the game was boring as fuck. And that video has more views than any other video I've made. Well, more organic views. The Breath of the Wild video I put out an advertisement for, and that's why it has 3,000 plus views. But I tried to put it on an advertisement for Cyberpunk video, and Google said no, that your advertisement violates our policies because it's shocking, I guess. I mean, all I did was say the game is boring. It can't be that shocking, but whatever. Um, so that video didn't have the opportunity to reach as many people. And yet somehow, it's still very popular. So I figured I'd follow up with my thoughts on the all the news about the game. And personally, I don't really care that much about it because, I mean, it's disappointing. Like, I thought The Witcher 3 was one of the best cinematic experiences I've ever had with the game. The story, the art, the characters. One thing that really fucking blew me away about it is that the game is so huge. So huge you could legitimately spend 100 hours on your first playthrough and not even reach the end. And every single line is voiced. There's not a single NPC or side character or whatever who just has a text box. None of them. And that's mind-boggling to me. Like, lots of games have done, fully voiced main campaign stuff for a long time, but they still cut corners somewhere, Like, some of the side quests, it'll just be like, oh yeah, you gotta fetch me 10 fucking things from that field over there, just, and they don't bother to voice that, they don't care. But CD Projekt Red was like, you know what, fuck it, it's expensive and time consuming, but it makes the game world feel more alive and better, so we'll put in the effort. And I thought that was really fucking cool. And I thought you could see that kind of work ethic in every facet of the game. They put in so much time and effort and love into that project. And I was really excited to see what they would do next. Because my only real problem with The Witcher is that the combat sucks. And that they don't have any idea how to make a competent control scheme. Like, your run button disappears when you're in combat because combat has a completely different control scheme than exploration, and that's not how competent games are made. In a competent game, you have all of your controls in the same control scheme throughout the entire length of the thing, right? Like, it and it's not like it's doing anything revolutionary, right? Like, if they wanted to know how to make a good control scheme, they could have just played like Oblivion on PS3 or fucking Shadow of Mordor, right? Like it's that same kind of gameplay, right? But but for some reason their control scheme is just so much worse than either of those titles, and I don't know why. And like, Oblivion is a really great comparison because that's also a huge open world game where you can run and fight and swim and jump and ride horses and shit, and it all works on one control scheme. I mean, admittedly, it's a little bit funky because you need the B button for the menu, and you press like they have a dedicated button for wait. Like, why? Why can't that just be something you select in the menu? but still, that control scheme is vastly better than anything in The Witcher. And it's not like they've never heard of Skyrim. Like, everyone's heard of Skyrim. They've seen the control scheme for Skyrim. They know how a game like that could be made with a competent control scheme. They just didn't for some reason. But whatever. So then I was really looking forward to the new game because I thought, hey, a bunch of people played the last game and a bunch of people told them, everything about this is great except that shitty fucking control scheme and your god awful anorexic combat. So can you fix those two things and it'll be like the best thing ever? And then they decided, okay, you want better combat? We'll make it a shooter that feels anorexic instead of a melee game. And we'll just fuck everything else up. Like, again, I didn't play it long enough to criticize everything about the game, but like, the cutscenes are so much worse. Part of it is the first person mode. Like, when you're playing The Witcher, you feel like you're watching, a well-made film with like shot composition and stuff, and like you can see Geralt's expression and you can see how your dialogue choices like affect the outcome of the conversation. But when I was playing through Cyberpunk, I felt like these cutscenes were more akin to what I would find in a Call of Duty game, where like your actions don't matter and there's barely even a story to begin with because they just don't care. It's not about the story. They're here to sell loot boxes. And so, gameplay wise, there was nothing to keep me interested. The gameplay was just as boring as ever, and now the cutscenes suck too, so I bailed. But that was far from the full extent of the problem with the game. So one huge issue is that there was apparently not enough time given to QA the game. Let's just go with that, because they did not QA the game. Now, I didn't notice very many glitches when I played the game on PC. I really only noticed that phantom cell phone thing. But when I played back the video, there were a ton of visual glitches that got caught by the encoder. So either those things happened like in between frames that I didn't see because my graphics card runs faster than my TV, or the game like ran fine on my screen but somehow just got fucked in the encoder because it's not optimized well. One of those two things happened. But either way, the footage of the game looks garbage. So I'm sorry about that. Also, in my last video, I mentioned that the time skip at the beginning is a year and a half. I was wrong. It's half a year, but still, same sentiment. Like, why do you have this time skip? Why do you bother showing me the shit before the time skip when we could just start here? And then like post time skip, there's still a bunch of characters you haven't introduced me to that you're talking about as if I should know them, because my character's been with them for 6 months, but like I haven't. Let me understand what the plot is. I don't need my character to know what's going on. I'm the one playing. But anyway, even though I didn't notice a bunch of glitches, the rest of the community did, especially those who decided to play on last-gen consoles, which I would never have advised for this game anyway. Like, I'm sorry, but CD Projekt Red has always been like the company that pushes their games to the absolute limit of what is theoretically possible on graphics hardware. and you're not going to be able to render it on a last gen console. That's just not what it's built for. Um, you know, and I mean, like, if you go back and play The Witcher 1 now, it looks like turds. But at the time, people literally could not afford computer hardware that was good enough to run that game. Um, and I don't see that trend changing when they moved into a bigger new sci-fi setting. So I'm not surprised that the PS4 version is so shit that no one can play it. But I am a little bit surprised that they actually you know, did that. Like you sold a product to people promising them it would be good and it wasn't. And not just that they sold this product and that it wasn't good, but that they didn't have to sell it, right? The thing is, they could have just said next gen consoles and PC only, and been fine with that. And I mean, people would have been a little bit salty, but that's we're on to the next gen, whatever. That's how it is now, But they didn't do that. Instead, they decided, okay, we'll delay the launch of all of our versions like 4 times so that we can launch on 6 different consoles and have all of them suck. Like, cut down your version numbers and, and more importantly than that, just why did you announce a release date and then say, look, I'm sorry, we're going to have to push the release date back. We need time to fix the bugs. And then not fix the bugs. Honestly, I'm just wondering how bad it was before they delayed the launch 3 times because wow. I mean, it's currently so bad that their shareholders are going to sue them for misrepresenting the product. Jesus Christ. How do you fuck up that bad? I've never heard of a game launch being that abysmal. I mean, that's like some fucking Daikatana shit right there. The company's stock price dropped dramatically after the launch, which is really impressive because normally when you launch a new product, your stock goes up because people hear about your product and are, able to buy it, and that's good optics. But no, they managed to bungle the launch so bad that even though the game sold pretty well, they lost money. Or, the investors lost money. It's impressive, honestly. It is. And I'd like to say that I'd be amazed that if a company could come back from this. But Bethesda exists, so actually Bethesda doesn't exist anymore. They're owned by Microsoft. But I mean, realistically, there's no reason to think that this is going to be a big deal for CD Projekt. Let's be honest, game companies have survived worse. Worse companies have survived worse. Which sucks, because realistically, you want a market where people who make good products succeed and people who make bad products disappear. But that's just not how it is, EA will live forever, and hell, honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if CD Projekt gets bought up by an EA or a Microsoft or something like that, because with a flop like this, that's going to be their best bet to move forward. their credibility is shot. Um, like they had a lot of goodwill on The Witcher 3. Like it was amazing. I look at The Witcher 1 and 2 and I think, man, I can't play these games. This control scheme is so garbage. It's mind-boggling. Um, like it's literally unplayable how mediocre the control scheme is. But like that was how a lot of PC games were designed for a long time. Like you just aren't supposed to be able to play them comfortably or enjoyably. You're just supposed to suffer. I don't know why that's the case, but um, you know, and and then they built on that, right? They moved away from that a little bit with The Witcher 3. Like it's still like mind-boggling how they have a worse control scheme than similar titles that came out 10 years prior, but at least they have controller support. At least they have any sort of thought put into how the game is going to play. Um, and I figured if they could build on that, if they could build up this much from one game to the next, then they could keep building and improve. And I mean, admittedly, the control scheme for uh, Cyberpunk was incredibly bog standard. Like, if you said this game was built by Ubisoft, here's the controller, run around, I would know exactly what the control scheme is that I need to use. And that's what they used, right? Um, like it plays exactly the same as every other shitty stealth-based shooter game that nobody cares about, you know? And that's fine, right? Like it's fine to have a basic ass control scheme. Your control scheme should be basic as fuck, because if it's convoluted or new or confusing, it can put people off. But the fact that the game plays in such a linear, boring fashion isn't good for engagement. Like if you build a huge game, you want people to play it. You want people to sink their teeth into it, to spend time with it. And I don't know, man. First person shooters just aren't built for that. Like the best of the genre is, shit like Borderlands, where the shooting is literally just a boring ass backdrop to the story and shit. And like even that, I mean, even that game has a ton of problems. I mean, Borderlands 2 was really great, mostly just because the story was fun and it gave you a lot of hope that this series could, improve even more, right? Because like the jump from the original to 2 is like insane in terms of visual quality, like the game feel, like how functional the menus are. Like it's a huge jump. And you just think, man, if they could build on this the way they built on that, it'd be so great. And then you play Borderlands 3 and it's just like, oh, I mean, kind of, but uh, like it does introduce new ideas and it is technically, better, but like in such a boring, uninteresting way. Um, you know, it's sad, honestly. And that's kind of how I felt about Cyberpunk too. Like this is technically a step forward for them, but it's a step forward into the bog of boring, samey crap that every other studio has been doing for years. And, you know, most of the other studios that have been doing this for years have been like building their little hut in that bog and getting and climbing on top of it and making lights and shit. And so, I'd rather play a boring game from Ubisoft than a boring game from CD Projekt Red, because Ubisoft has been making boring games longer, so they know how to do it better. If that makes any sense. Um, I mean, yeah, it's. Uh, so, anyway, I think it's hilarious, and I can't wait until, like, more people just get to see this shit show. Um, like, I've been heavily anticipating the zero punctuation episode on this ever since the game launched. I don't know when it's coming, but I know it's coming, and it's going to be scathing, and I cannot wait. Um, uh, so, yeah. Thank you all for watching. It's been a ride, and honestly, I hope they learn their lesson from this. I really do. I hope that the next game is announced like after it's ready, and I hope that it's like actually good. Um, because like simple fact is this game isn't going to cut their profits enough to make it so there isn't a next game. Uh, yeah, this isn't going to hurt their reputation so much that they don't at least try to move forward. But I do think it's going to be really hard to sell the next game to most people because they've just ruined their credibility with this move. Like, you delayed the game for bug fixing, and like, I could get behind that. Like, if the game actually came out bug free because they delayed it, I would have been fucking praising them to the moon and back. I hate when games come out and aren't playable for 6 months. Like, fuck that. But but if you're gonna delay for 6 months and then still not be playable, and then cause seizures and shit, like, oh my god, how do you fuck up that bad? And like, I mean, admittedly, video games are a bit of a seizure risk anyway, but this game in particular is a risk because it has like realistic police siren things with like flashing red and white lights, and that alternating flashing color thing that they do is very bad for epileptics. And like, I've always been very aware of this issue because my cousin is epileptic, and so we have to be careful whenever she's around to make sure that like nothing sets her off. Um, and so I've always paid attention to that kind of thing in games. I don't personally like it doesn't personally bother me that much because I don't suffer from it, and because like you know it's a game, it's made of flashing lights. Like, there is a limit to how much you can do to eliminate flashing lights, but at the same time, like, you should do something, right? And you should at least warn people. Like, sure, it's in the ULA, but like, come on, like, no one reads that. And and more importantly, like, if you are at risk of epilepsy, you should go out of your way to double check any games you intend to play, because they are made of flashing lights. Like, it is light and color on a screen, so no matter what, there's going to be like some games that are at risk of that. So do your due diligence on it, but but companies should also put up warnings if they know that they've used particularly dangerous settings in certain areas. And you know what, there should be an epilepsy friendly version where like a setting you can click where it's just like turns those lights down, or changes their color so they're less likely to cause an issue, or something. But yeah, I don't know, it feels really fucked up, honestly. I'm So yeah, CD Projekt Red. I look forward to seeing if you can come back from this because hot damn, this was bad. But you know, we'll see. I mean, you know, we'll see. Honestly though, I think it's very possible they get bought up after this. You know, I mean, Bethesda got bought up after Fallout 76, you know. I mean, not because of that, but just like that happened and they were still able to make a deal with Microsoft for so much money. And I think it's possible that something similar will happen with CD Projekt Red, which sucks because, like, you know, independent studios that do, you know, niche work are rare, and we should want them to succeed instead of being bought up by corporate overlords. But, you know, if you make a shit product, maybe your company should fail. Um, I mean, not necessarily all at once, you know, like everyone's allowed a couple mistakes, but like this is only their fourth game, and it's a really big mistake, you know, like it. Uh. Anyway, you know, that's just how I feel about it. So, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next life. Laters. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you have any things to say about it, leave those in the comment section. If you like the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, share the video, tell your friends, start a cult, sacrifice your firstborn and paint their skull golden. I don't know, I mean, not that last bit. No human sacrifices. I'm legally liable. No, none of that shit. But, you know, I got Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. I stream on Mondays. I also have a Patreon, but the obvious caveat with Patreon is you never donate to anyone unless you have money to burn. And if you have money to burn, then why not donate to a charity instead? I've got a few linked in my description at all times. I'm not affiliated with any of them, obviously, but yeah, I just thought they were cool. So, you know, thanks for watching.